Beyond Destruction, the Entity That Reinvents Reality. Part 1, Shadows from the Abyss. The shimmering tapestry of the Galactic Empire, woven from 1,000 star systems and the collective ambitions of 100 alien races, was beginning to unravel. For millennia, the Empire had stood as a beacon of order and technological supremacy against the chaotic backdrop of the cosmos. Its formidable fleets, equipped with energy weapons capable of vaporizing asteroids and shielded by technologies that manipulated spacetime itself, had ensured peace and prosperity, albeit a peace enforced with an iron fist. But even the mightiest empires are vulnerable to the unforeseen, the incomprehensible. And from the inky blackness beyond the galactic rim, an anomaly emerged, something that defied all known laws of physics and biology. They were soon christened, in hushed and terrified whispers, as the Void Eaters. The first contact was swift and brutal. A remote mining colony on the fringes of explored space, designated LX-479, simply vanished. Gone. No wreckage, no distress signals, no lingering energy signatures, just an empty void where a thriving world had once been. Initial reports were dismissed as a statistical anomaly, a rogue black hole, or even a previously undetected temporal distortion. But then another colony disappeared, and another, each leaving behind the same unnerving emptiness. Panic began to ripple through the Empire's core worlds. The Imperial High Command, a council of the most brilliant, and often most arrogant, military strategists from across the galaxy, dismissed the reports as exaggerated rumors spread by fearful colonists. They mobilized the nearest fleet, the Hammer of Orion, a behemoth of warships bristling with energy cannons and shielded by cutting-edge phase technology. The Hammer of Orion engaged the Void Eaters near the desolate system of Cygnus Prime. The initial reports were optimistic. The fleet unleashed a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the void like a miniature sun. But the light soon faded, replaced by a chilling silence. The Void Eaters, vast, amorphous shapes of pure darkness, seemed to absorb the energy, the light, everything. The Hammer of Orion, once the pride of the Imperial Navy, was consumed, its ships and crew erased from existence, leaving behind only the same unsettling void. The news sent shockwaves through the Empire. For the first time in millennia, fear took root in the hearts of its citizens. The High Command, shaken but unwilling to admit defeat, threw more fleets into the grinder, each meeting the same fate. The Void Eaters continued their inexorable advance, leaving behind a trail of dead star systems and a growing sense of despair. Amidst this chaos, on the dusty, unremarkable world of Kepler 186f, lived a human scientist named Dr. Eris Thorne. Kepler 186f was a backwater planet, a small colony world known for its resilient crops and its equally resilient population. Humanity, in the grand scheme of the Galactic Empire, was an insignificant species, known more for their adaptability and tenacity than for their technological prowess. The Empire tolerated them, even occasionally exploited them, but rarely took them seriously. Eris was something of an outcast, even among his fellow humans. He was brilliant, undeniably so, but his fascination with obsolete technologies and his unorthodox theories had earned him a reputation as an eccentric. He spent his days tinkering with discarded Imperial tech, salvaged from junkyards and forgotten research labs, searching for answers to questions that no one else seemed to be asking. When the news of the Void Eaters reached Kepler 186f, most dismissed it as distant Imperial propaganda, designed to keep the colonies in line. But Eris saw something different in the fragmented reports and distorted sensor readings. He saw a pattern, a terrifying logic behind the seemingly random destruction. He locked himself in his cluttered laboratory, surrounded by stacks of dusty datapads and humming machinery. He pored over the Imperial reports, dissecting the sensor data, running simulations on his archaic computer. He ignored the increasingly panicked broadcasts from the Imperial news networks, focusing instead on the raw, unfiltered information. Days turned into nights as Eris worked tirelessly, fueled by caffeine and a growing sense of dread. He began to realize that the Void Eaters weren't simply destroying matter, they were converting it. The energy weapons, the advanced shielding, everything was being absorbed and transformed into something utterly alien, something that existed beyond the boundaries of known physics. The Empire's technology, for all its sophistication, was based on predictable, linear principles. It was a system of finely tuned gears, each operating within a narrow set of parameters. The Void Eaters were exploiting this predictability, turning the Empire's strengths into weaknesses. Eris knew that the Empire's rigid adherence to established doctrines would be its downfall. They wouldn't be able to adapt, to think outside the box. But humanity, with its history of improvisation and its willingness to embrace the unconventional, might just have a chance. Part 2, A Spark of Rebellion. Eris knew he had to act quickly. He compiled his findings into a comprehensive report, outlining his theories about the Void Eaters and his proposed strategies for combating them. He tried to send it to the Imperial High Command, but his communications were repeatedly blocked by bureaucratic red tape and dismissive Imperial officers. They simply couldn't believe that a backwater human scientist could offer anything of value in the face of such a cataclysmic threat. Frustrated and desperate, Eris turned to the local human authorities on Kepler 186F. The planetary governor, a pragmatic woman named Anya Sharma, was initially skeptical. But Eris's passion and his compelling evidence eventually convinced her that he might be onto something. Anya, despite her limited resources, was a resourceful and determined leader. She gathered a team of human scientists and engineers, hand-picked for their ingenuity and their willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. They worked in secret, modifying existing human technologies and experimenting with new, untested theories. Eris focused on disrupting the Void Eaters' conversion process. He theorized that by introducing chaotic and unpredictable energy patterns, they could overload the entity's capacity to absorb and transform matter. He began experimenting with quantum entanglement, strange vibrational frequencies, and even a forgotten form of psychic resonance, technologies that the Empire had long abandoned as impractical or unreliable. The team faced numerous challenges. They lacked the advanced resources of the Empire, and their experiments were often plagued by setbacks and failures. But they persevered, driven by a desperate hope and a fierce determination to save their world. Meanwhile, the situation in the rest of the Empire continued to deteriorate. The Void Eaters had breached the core worlds, consuming entire star systems and leaving behind a trail of terror and devastation. The Imperial High Command, finally realizing the gravity of the situation, was in disarray, its once unshakable confidence shattered. Desperate, the High Command issued a galaxy-wide call for assistance, promising vast rewards to anyone who could offer a solution to the Void Eater threat. It was a tacit admission of defeat, a sign that the mighty Empire was teetering on the brink of collapse. Anya saw this as an opportunity. She contacted the High Command, presenting Eris's theories and the team's experimental technologies. The response was initially dismissive. The Imperial officers were reluctant to rely on human ingenuity, especially when their own advanced technologies had failed so spectacularly. But Anya persisted, using her political connections and her persuasive skills to convince the High Command to give them a chance. She argued that humanity's unique perspective and its willingness to embrace unconventional solutions might be the Empire's only hope. Reluctantly, the High Command agreed to allocate a small fleet of outdated Imperial warships to Anya's command. It was a token gesture, a way to appease the human colonies without diverting significant resources from the front lines. But it was enough. Part 3, The Ragtag Fleet. Anya assembled her fleet at a remote space station orbiting Kepler 186F. The ships were a motley collection of outdated cruisers, repurposed freighters, and jury-rigged fighters, crewed by a ragtag mix of human volunteers, ex-Imperial officers, and even a few alien mercenaries. They were an unlikely force to face the Void Eaters, but they were united by a common purpose, to save the galaxy from annihilation. Eris and his team worked feverishly to install their experimental technologies on the ships. They modified the energy weapons to emit chaotic bursts of quantum energy, rigged the shields to generate unpredictable vibrational frequencies, and even attempted to amplify the psychic resonance of the human crew. The Imperial officers in the fleet were skeptical of Eris's methods. They were accustomed to the precision and predictability of Imperial technology, and they found the human approach to be chaotic and inefficient. But they were also desperate, and they knew that they had nothing to lose. Anya addressed the fleet, her voice broadcasting across the comms channels. "We are not the Empire's finest," she said, "we are not the best equipped. But we are the most adaptable. We are the most resilient. We are human. The Empire has failed," she continued, "it has relied on its superior technology and its rigid doctrines, and it has been crushed. But we will not make the same mistake. We will use our ingenuity, our creativity, and our willingness to embrace the unknown to defeat the Void Eaters. We are not fighting for the Empire," she concluded, "we are fighting for our survival. We are fighting for our future. We are fighting for humanity." The fleet set course for the front lines, where the Void Eaters were continuing their relentless advance. The odds were stacked against them, but they were determined to make a stand. They were humanity's last hope. Part 4, A Dance of Chaos. The human fleet engaged the Void Eaters near the shattered remains of the once mighty Cygnus system. The sight of the entities was terrifying. Vast, amorphous shapes of pure darkness, they drifted through space, consuming everything in their path. The Imperial officers, initially hesitant, followed Anya's orders. They unleashed a barrage of chaotic energy blasts at the Void Eaters, hoping to disrupt their conversion process. The effect was immediate and unexpected. The Void Eaters recoiled, their forms flickering and distorting. The chaotic energy patterns were interfering with their ability to absorb and transform matter. The human modifications were working. The fleet pressed its advantage, launching waves of fighters equipped with vibrational frequency generators. The high-frequency waves disrupted the Void Eaters' internal structure, causing them to weaken and fragment. The battle raged for hours. The human fleet, despite its inferior numbers and outdated technology, fought with a ferocity and ingenuity that surprised even themselves. They used unconventional tactics, exploiting the Void Eaters' weaknesses and improvising new strategies on the fly. Eris, monitoring the battle from the command center of Anya's flagship, the Hope, realized that the psychic resonance of the human crew was also playing a role. The collective will of the humans, their shared sense of purpose, was creating a powerful energy field that was further disrupting the Void Eaters. He instructed Anya to focus the crew's psychic energy, channeling their collective will into a single, concentrated blast. It was a risky maneuver, but it was their last chance to deliver a decisive blow. Anya rallied the crew of the Hope, urging them to focus their minds, to visualize the destruction of the Void Eaters, to believe in their victory. The ship hummed with psychic energy, the air crackling with anticipation. Anya gave the order, and the Hope unleashed a massive blast of concentrated psychic energy at the largest of the Void Eaters. The effect was devastating. The entity convulsed, its form shattering into a million fragments of darkness. The other Void Eaters, disoriented and weakened, began to retreat. The human fleet had won. Part 5, The Dawn of a New Era. The retreat of the Void Eaters marked a turning point in the war. The human victory at Cygnus Prime had shattered the entity's aura of invincibility and given the Empire a much-needed boost of morale. Inspired by the human example, the Empire began to adapt its own strategies, incorporating elements of chaos and unpredictability into its technology. They abandoned their rigid doctrines and embraced new, unconventional approaches. The war against the Void Eaters was far from over, but the tide had turned. The Empire, with the help of humanity, was finally fighting back. Eris Thorn became a hero, his theories vindicated, his name celebrated throughout the galaxy. He was appointed as the head of a new research institute, dedicated to exploring unconventional technologies and finding new ways to combat the Void Eaters. Anya Sharma was hailed as a savior, her leadership and her courage inspiring countless others to join the fight. She was promoted to the rank of admiral and given command of a new fleet, tasked with hunting down the remaining Void Eaters. Humanity, once an insignificant species on the fringes of the Empire, had proven its worth. Its adaptability, its ingenuity, and its willingness to embrace the unknown had saved the galaxy from annihilation. The Empire, humbled by its near defeat, finally recognized the value of human potential. In the aftermath of the war, the Galactic Empire underwent a radical transformation. The old hierarchies were broken down, and new alliances were forged. The Empire became more diverse, more inclusive, and more open to new ideas. Humanity played a key role in this transformation, its influence spreading throughout the galaxy. Human scientists, engineers, and artists contributed their unique perspectives to the Empire's culture and technology. Human values, such as adaptability, resilience, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, became increasingly important in the Empire's decision-making processes. The threat of the Void Eaters remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of existence and the importance of innovation. But the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson, that even the mightiest empires can be defeated by the power of human ingenuity and the courage of the underdog. The Void Eaters had brought the Galactic Empire to its knees, but in doing so, they had also unleashed the hidden potential of humanity. The darkness had been pushed back, and the dawn of a new era was breaking across the galaxy, an era of cooperation, innovation, and a renewed sense of hope. The galaxy was safe, for now, because a small insignificant species had found its strength in its differences, in its adaptability, and its refusal to surrender what made it unique. Humanity had stared into the void, and the void had blinked.